Hi there, and welcome to this Yin Yoga class. Yin Yoga is a style of yoga that I absolutely love teaching, and I like to teach it as well as teaching the Vinyasa Yoga because it brings a lovely balance. The Vinyasa flow yoga tends to be much more yang energy, whereas your yin is yin. So we achieve that lovely balance. I wanted to explain a few things about yin before we get started. So if you are familiar with yin yoga, you can just skip to the beginning of the class. I'll put a timestamp in the description box below. Yin yoga gets its name from the stillness that it has, very feminine kind of energy. In yin yoga, we are looking at accessing the connective tissue of the joints. And the way that we do that is by holding these poses for a long time on a cold body, which sounds completely counterintuitive. Our whole lives we've been told about, warming up before doing any stretches. It's something I am very adamant about when we practice our yang yoga. We will do our sun salutations or create some movements through the body to get the blood into the muscle and get the heart rate up before we perform any kind of static stretches. And yin is completely opposite to that. So why is that, and why on earth would I recommend a type of yoga that promotes this? Well, this is because of the nature of a cold muscle and the nature of connective tissue and the way that yin yoga is practiced. A cold muscle is much shorter and more contracted than a warm muscle. So when the muscle is warm, it's almost like a sponge. It's filled with water, and it can extend and it can contract much more easily. It's more elastic. A cold muscle is far less elastic. So what happens is when you stretch a cold muscle, or when you apply force to a cold muscle, it pulls onto that connective tissue with a lot more efficiency than would happen if you were applying that same force to a warm muscle, a muscle that is more elastic. That elastic muscle is going to absorb more of that force before it pulls on that connective tissue than your cold, contracted muscle does. So why are we doing this? Why are we pulling onto the connective tissue? Right. A connective tissue, ligaments, tendons, fascia, is not by nature an extremely elastic tissue. It's not as elastic as the muscle tissue. What we are looking to achieve with yin yoga is to apply a stress onto that muscle in a controlled way. And unlike muscles that respond to contraction and extension, so a lot of movement, connective tissue responds best to a very slow, steady, controlled force, which is why we hold our poses in yin yoga for as long as we do, because that is the most effective way of applying that stress or that force onto the connective tissue. When we apply stress to any tissue in the body responds by making that tissue stronger, as long as obviously it's not excessive force is applied and injury is caused. For example, bodybuilders, athletes, it doesn't matter what it is. You're applying a force to your muscle, and then when you rest, that is when the body takes the time to repair, to rebuild that muscle. And in the case of things like bodybuilding, hypertrophy occurs and that muscle grows bigger and stronger than it was before, and then the process is repeated over and over again. So you're building up the strength of the muscle. So this is exactly the same principle, applying that stress or that force to that connective tissue, lengthening it slightly, and then what does the body do? It responds by making that connective tissue stronger, which is what we want. Also, What we find with people who have a restricted range of motion in various joints, it's often as a result of that connective tissue being tight. What will happen is if you have a repetitive movement pattern in your hips, for example, of that very short range of motion, which I've showed you before with the hip flexors, the connective tissue around that joint just becomes shorter and only really stretches and contracts as much as it needs to. So that exacerbates that restricted range of motion. So when it comes to us trying to stretch out that joint, extend that range of motion, it's almost like that joint is glued shut, for want of a better word, by this connective tissue that's kind of shrink wrapped itself around the joint. So we want to access that. Let's strengthen and pull them out. Before we get into the class, this is a practice that will probably definitely require the use of props, blocks in particular, cushions, bolsters, a towel, a blanket, all of those can come into use. Absolutely. So make sure you've got some props to hand. If you don't have yoga blocks, as I've said before, you can use anything else that's kind of firm, whether it's a big book that you could use as a block. If perhaps you have a Tupperware container with a lid, you can use that as a block.
So sit on your mat with your legs crossed, half lotus, full lotus, whatever's comfortable for you. Sitting nice and tall with the eyes closed. Crown of the head reaching up towards the ceiling. You bring your focus to your breath. Inhaling and exhaling out of the nose, feeling your belly rise and fall. Mind beginning to slow down. Come to the right mind space for your practice. Totally less time today with our opening meditation because the entire Yin practice is a meditation of its own. So we remind ourselves to be mindful. Stay in the present moment. And to our bodies. So set attention for yourself now as you sit here. Breathing, focusing on the breath. Of your body. Notice how you feel as you sit here. Notice if there's any tightness through the body, perhaps through the hips or through these. And then make the same observation at the end of your practice and just notice if there is any change. And now we prepare to move into our first asana of the day. Open your eyes.
So bring the soles of your feet together. With Yin Yoga, we are not concerned at all with alignment. You allow your body to fall in whatever way is natural and comfortable for your body. We want to relax the muscles entirely so we can access that stretch through to the connective tissue. So bringing the soles of the feet together, not worried if your feet are further away from the body and not as close into the groin. And here's where your blocks come in useful. We're going to come forward, not worrying about the back being flat. We can round that spine, bring the block onto the feet. So you can build those blocks up. And you're just going to rest the forehead and relax the arms. You can, of course, alter the height. It's up to you, as high or as low as you like. And just let those arms relax. So when you come into these poses in your yin practice, listen to your body. This is the biggest way of avoiding any kind of injury. So come into your pose. As you feel that point of resistance, stop. Hold it there. Relax. Breathe. If you feel any kind of muscle spasm or pain, move out of the pose completely. But you should never get to that point. We want to feel discomfort, yes, but no pain. Breathe. Where the mind goes, energy flows. So send your mind to that area of the body where you're feeling any resistance, discomfort. Focus on that area. Breathe deep in and out of the belly. What you may find as you're in the pose is that it may begin to surrender and release and become looser. And then you're very, very welcome to move deeper into that pose. Alter the height of your block, make it lower. But listen to the body. Breathe. Send your breath to your hips as you inhale. And as you exhale, empty all that resistance from the body as you breathe it out. Coming out of these poses, we move very slowly, very mindfully, and with care. So pressing down on your hands, supporting yourself, slowly start to move the torso up. Move your block and place a hand under each knee. And slowly bring those legs together and extend them out along the ground. Breathe. Lovely. Let's move into our next stretch. So open the legs. A lot of the poses we do in yin are same essentially as the poses that we do in yang. Because we perform them differently and we're not as worried about the alignment, they are given different names. So a lot of the yin yoga poses are actually names for animals. So this is dragonfly pose. So just bring your legs out as wide as you can. And again, your blocks, bringing them in front of you, building them up as high as you need to. Just going to bring the body forward and rest that forehead on the block. So first establish the balance, because I want you to completely surrender. I don't want you to be worrying that the blocks are going to fall over. You need to be focusing on that area of the stretch. Alter the height as you need. And rest the arms wherever you like. If they want to be on the ground out in front of you, great. If they would prefer to rest on the legs, super. It doesn't matter. And if the feet want to fall to the insides, that's fine. We are carrying no tension through the body whatsoever. We want the muscles to be as passive and relaxed as they possibly can be. When the muscles are relaxed and we apply that stretch or that force to them, again, we get a better lengthening or a better application of force or stress to the connective tissue. So breathe. Observe. Observe your body. Where are you feeling the resistance? Is it in the groin? You shouldn't be feeling discomfort through the lower back. If you are, adjust your position. Perhaps you need to move the blocks closer to you. Surrender to this stretch. Again, noticing, observing. If you find that surrender, that discomfort seems to have disappeared. And if you would like to move further into the stretch, you can alter the height of those props as you need. You may not need any of these props at all. And that's great. But listen to your body. Do what is right for you. Breathe. Once you are in your position, you've established that position, and it's a position that you can hold for an extended period of time. Become still. Resist the urge to fidget. When the body is still, we allow ourselves to enter into a type of meditation. We call this active meditation, which is the type of meditation we move towards when we practice Yin Yoga. Active because we are stretching the body. When we do our Shavasana or our opening meditation at the beginning of our practice, the body is completely passive. So all different types of meditation. We can have dynamic meditation, which occurs when the body is moving. And this is that kind of being in the zone, if you like, that runners experience. Swimmers too, that repetitive motion and movement. But it occurs in many other different activities too.
Some people experience this type of meditation when they're singing, or when they're doing a task that's repetitive, that calms them and slows the mind down. Now we've held this pose for 5 minutes. It may not seem like that, or it may seem a lot longer. Always moving out of these yin poses slowly. So prepare yourself, your mind and your body, to move slowly out of this pose. Again, pressing down with the hands to support the torso. Bringing the torso up, walking the hands back to the body. And then bringing a hand under each knee. And bending that leg. And you can extend those legs out in front of you. We come into our next pose now, which is our seated forward fold, which we call caterpillar. I don't think you can see my feet, but they remain completely relaxed. We don't have that strong flexion through the foot, pointing the toes up to the ceiling. Blocks to hand again. And we're going to bring this torso forwards. Again, not worrying about keeping the chest open, the shoulders rolled back, and folding through the hips. Just coming forward, however that may look. And resting the blocks either on your thighs, just above the knee. If you can come down really far, you might find that the block wants to rest on the shins. You might not need the blocks at all. So just listen to your body. So move into the pose. Just until you feel that point of resistance. As always, listen to the body. Establish yourself in your position, making sure that that's where you can hold this pose for the next 5 minutes. Feeling a lovely release up through the backs of the legs. The body is composed of a lot of connective tissue. Probably about 30% of it is connective tissue. And that includes all the fascia that runs in between and around the muscles, the tendons and the ligaments. And most of the connective tissue is located in the joints. So that is what we are kind of targeting when we do these poses. Now in yoga, we learn and teach about meridians, which are the channels of energy that run through the body. In Chinese medicine, this is called qi. In yoga, we call it prana. It's the life force. And there's some studies that have been done that would suggest that perhaps these meridians, or these channels of energy through the body, are actually created by the connective tissue. So one of the theories behind yoga, or Yin Yoga rather, is that by releasing this connective tissue, by releasing any blockages in this connective tissue, we are simultaneously freeing up this channel for our prana, our chi to flow. In this position, we are stimulating or unblocking
the bladder meridian, which comes up the back of the body. So this is one of the reasons that when we do sit and perform seated meditations, we want the body long. We want the back long. We don't want to slouch down through the lower spine and block that channel. We want it open. Breathe into the backs of your legs. If that surrender has come for you at that height, you can change the height of your block. But listen to the body. Notice how one side is possibly tighter than the other side. There's more resistance there. Breathe. Send your breath to that area. Preparing to come out of this pose once again. Pressing down with the hands, moving slowly, moving mindfully. We never come up quickly out of these poses. We don't want the muscle or the connective tissue to move back suddenly to its original length or original position. And now we're going to come into lovely pigeon pose, which we call sleeping swan. So coming into pigeon pose, this is where a bolster actually works really well, and cushion as well, your blocks, whatever you need. So set yourself up, extending your right leg first and bending the left leg along the mat. If your pelvis comes straight down onto the mat with no problems or resistance at all, that's wonderful. If not, it's sometimes helpful just to place a boulder under the pelvis so you have something to rest on, a bolster, if I said boulder, and then come forward onto the forearms. If you can come straight down with comfort, great. Otherwise, bring your cushion. Build that up with a block and let that support the chest. It's entirely up to you. So play around with your props until you find a position that's relatively comfortable. It's not going to be extremely comfortable. You can also place your blocks, as I mentioned in the Hatha video, underneath your thigh or underneath your glute on the left-hand side, whatever works for you. So relax into this pose. I hope you're not going to lose my sound now. Breathe. This is generally everybody's least favorite pose because of the tightness that we tend to hold in our hips. Deep breaths. So important to stay connected to your breath during your yin practice. Breath is what will help you get through these long periods.
It seems to be an automatic reaction of the body that if we are faced with discomfort at all, that we hold our breath. We need to breathe and surrender. Don't tense the muscles around the joint. Relax and let go. Now, apart from yin being so valuable on a physiological level and really being quite effective at increasing the range of motion around these joints in the body, it's an extremely powerful yoga practice because it forces us to sit with discomfort, which is something we do not like to do. Generally, if we are feeling any kind of discomfort or pain, we move as quickly as we can through it. Yin forces us to sit in that moment, to be still, and to actually become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And when we begin to realize that we are able to sit in these moments of great discomfort for an extended period of time, we realize how capable we are of facing whatever challenges are put before us. So if that's maybe an exercise challenge, and you think you've hit that point where you can't carry on anymore, you understand that you can, and that you can sit with that pain and you can be comfortable with it. So let's move slowly out of this pose now. We've been here for 4 minutes. Coming up onto the forearms, bringing the hands back and lifting the torso up. Engage these right toes and slowly, slowly, slowly bring that pelvis up. You can remove all these props and bring this left leg back and extend it along the ground behind you. Just getting some relief through that knee. And when you're ready, let's move to the other side. Again, get yourself all situated, whether you need a bolster to come underneath the pelvis. Maybe you like a yoga block. It's up to you. It's up to your body. And then maybe bringing a cushion underneath the chest to support your torso, and possibly resting the hands, or the head rather, on the hands. So set your position and remain still here for the next 4 minutes, focusing with that breath. Deep inhalations and exhalations. Sending the mind and the breath to the hip, to any area feeling resistance. And letting go. The muscles want to tighten around a joint when we are doing these stretches. It's a way the body looks after itself, protects those joints. So really focus on relaxing the muscle, surrendering to the stretch, allowing that stretch to move from the muscle to those deeper, less elastic tissues. Breathe. And I know I've mentioned this before, but notice as well, are you having any emotions arising from this stretch? Are you feeling annoyed? Irritated? Observe. And then let go. Breathe out and release. Let those emotions be removed from the body. So when we hold a stretch, particularly this one, or the sleeping swan, we're almost creating a dam of energy through the hip. So that energy flow is kind of blocked as we create this stretching. And as we move out of that stretch, it's like opening the floodgates of the dam. So that energy really rushes through that joint, down through to the bottom of the leg. So observe that and notice if you feel that when we come out of this pose. As you slowly push up on the arms, preparing to move out of this pose, as always, being slow, being mindful, taking your time, you're not in any rush. Just move these props out of the way, engage those left toes. You can keep that left knee on the ground. I have to just pick mine up a little bit, and then bring that right leg back, extend it behind you, and feel all that energy really flowing and rushing through the knee and through the hip. And then when you're ready, come back to seated position on your mat. So coming into fire log pose or square pose, the lower legs come into line with the front of the mat. And then as best you can, bring that left foot on top of the right knee, left knee above the right foot. If your hips are very loose and very open, this knee will come straight down and rest quite comfortably on that foot below it. If not, you're going to find that these knees
want to stay up, the bottom one as well. If that's the case, it's not a problem. Grab your blocks. Just find a prop. Put that block beneath your calf. Pop it underneath your thigh to support you. So work with your anatomy. And then rest your hands, your arms wherever you like. Close your eyes. Breathe. If you have these beautifully loose hips and you want to fold forward, bring the chest down, go ahead, listen to your body, do what's right for you. So we're really focusing on the hips today. Trying to get them from all angles. Be present in this moment. It's very tempting for the mind to drift and for you to start thinking about all the things that you need to do. But thinking doesn't get them done, and you need to take this time for yourself. So focus on the breath. Observe the body. Learn to listen to the body. Become so finely tuned in that you notice tiny signals the body may be sending you. Perhaps you're starting to become ill. Noticing if there's a niggle. And a lot of times taking action at these times to prevent things from developing into illness or into injury. Not always, but oftentimes. So we're not holding this pose for as long as we have some of the others. So open the eyes. You can remove your props if you had them. Slowly move the legs and change the cross of your legs so that the other leg is on top now. And sitting here for another 3 minutes. Releasing. Surrendering. Deep breaths. Don't allow that breathing to become shallow because you're uncomfortable. Make it even deeper. And open your eyes as you slowly move out of this pose. And bringing your knees up. You can flatten your feet on the ground, and if you like, with your hands at your sides, just let your knees slowly fall left and right, getting a little bit of movement back through them. Lovely.